At 8:03 p.m., in a hospital that didn't even know his name, a single father pulled his arm away from the needle, dizzy from the blood he had just given to save the life of a billionaire's daughter. The same billionaire who had crushed his dignity that very morning in a marble lobby. His own little girl slept on his chest, fingers knotted in his shirt, as if the world might tear him away if she loosened her grip. Down the hallway, behind the glass of the pediatric trauma unit, the woman who had once looked at him as nothing more than an inconvenience now stood trembling, mascara streaked, breath unsteady, waiting to hear whether her child would live on the blood of the janitor she had broken without a second thought. 6 hours earlier, Marcus Webb heard the announcement before he understood the words. The hospital intercom crackled overhead, turning the corridor into a tunnel of sound. Code red. O-negative blood urgently required. Pediatric emergency. All compatible staff, please report to the donation center. He froze mid-step. Lily was in his arms, legs hooked around his waist, her small hand resting at the base of his neck like it had lived there forever. They had just finished her routine checkup. Her heart murmur remained unchanged, the doctor had said, which was medical language for the quiet miracle of not worse. O-negative. His blood type. The rare one. Lily tipped her head back and looked up at him, her brown eyes serious in a way no 6-year-old's eyes should ever have to be. "Daddy," she asked softly, "that's your blood, right? The special kind?" He swallowed. "Yeah, baby. It is." Before he could decide what to tell her, the doors of the donation center at the end of the hall burst open. A woman stumbled out, her composure shattered. Her heels clattered on the linoleum, too fast and too loud. The blazer of her expensive suit hung slightly crooked, her usually precise hair pulled back in a hurried knot. Black mascara tracks cut down through the polished image she wore to boardrooms and magazine covers. Her hands shook as they reached for the doorframe. Marcus recognized her before his thoughts caught up. Victoria Ashford, CEO of Ashford Industries, the woman who, just hours earlier, had shredded what was left of his pride in front of a lobby full of employees. She stopped dead when she saw him. The janitor. The man whose cleaning cart had annoyed her that morning. The man she had publicly scolded as if he were a faulty piece of equipment. The man now standing in a hospital corridor, holding his daughter, while the intercom begged for the blood that flowed quietly through his veins. Her expression collapsed in on itself. Shock, confusion, something like horror. The world seemed to hold its breath, and then the day rewound to where it had started. Marcus's alarm went off at 4:30 a.m., slicing through the dark. He silenced it quickly. The last thing he wanted was to yank Lily out of sleep before dawn. Her bedroom, or what passed for one, was really the far half of the small apartment's only bedroom, separated from his corner by a cheap bookshelf and a curtain. She slept curled around her stuffed elephant, one leg thrown out from under the blanket, curls forming a tangled halo on her pillow. The apartment was small enough that he could move through it almost blind. 2 steps from mattress to dresser, 4 to the kitchen counter. Left hand along the edge, careful where the tile cracked near the sink. The coffee maker gurgled and coughed like an old smoker as it started up, the smell of cheap coffee slowly pushing back the night. He pulled on his navy work pants, the fabric thinning at the knees, and buttoned his matching shirt. Above the pocket, white embroidery spelled out his name in block letters, Marcus. Sometimes he stared at that word and tried to remember what it felt like to have senior mechanical engineer underneath it instead. There had been a time when his days were spent in conference rooms, not service corridors. A time when people shook his hand and asked for his opinion about engine tolerances and thermal stresses. His designs had once been sent to aerospace firms with his name somewhere in the fine print. Then Sarah got sick. Leukemia. The word had felt like a wrecking ball the first time a doctor said it. It swung straight through everything. Their savings, their home, his job. Insurance argued over codes and coverage limits. Bills mounted. He took unpaid leave, then lost his position entirely when he didn't transition back fast enough. They sold the house. They drained retirement accounts they'd been contributing to since their 20s. They emptied the college fund they'd opened when Lily was born. None of it was enough. When Sarah died, the hospital bills remained, like ghosts that arrived in white envelopes. After the funeral, he'd sat at the kitchen table with a calculator and a stack of overdue notices and realized that pride had become a luxury he couldn't afford. Ashford Industries was hiring janitors at their corporate headquarters in Columbus. The pay wasn't glamorous, but it was steady. The hours started early and ended early enough that he could pick Lily up from subsidized daycare before late fees began to stack. He took the job. He took every extra shift he could. He took the whispered comments and the way other men from his graduating class, when he bumped into them, blinked and said, "You're doing what now?" and then tried to make their faces look polite. He learned to swallow it all. "Daddy?" A sleep-rough voice came from the doorway. He turned. Lily stood there in her two big pajamas, clutching her elephant by the trunk. Her hair was a mess. Her eyes, however, were sharp and awake. "What are you doing up, Ladybug?" he whispered. "You've got a doctor's appointment later. You should be asleep." She took a few small steps into the kitchen. "I wanted to hug you before work, in case I forget later." He smiled, soft and aching, and crouched down to scoop her up. "I will never let you forget to hug me," he said into her hair. She smelled like sleep and strawberries. "I'll be back before your appointment. We'll do the checkup and then we'll get donuts. You can pick the messiest one." "You promise?" He looked her in the eyes. "I promise." She searched his face with a seriousness that always made him feel like he was being measured against some invisible standard. Then she nodded, satisfied, and padded back to bed. He finished his coffee, packed a simple lunch, sandwich, apple, the same as yesterday and the day before, and grabbed his keyring. The cold outside hit him as soon as he stepped into the stairwell. On the street below, the city was still mostly asleep. There were people like him, drivers, cooks, cleaners, moving through the dark, invisible gears turning to make the morning possible. He joined them. Ashford Industries headquarters always looked like it had been built to impress people who believed they would never die. Steel and glass clawed at the sky. The front plaza was all sharp lines and curated greenery. Inside, the lobby belonged in an architectural magazine, a sweeping space of marble floors, towering windows, minimalist furniture. It smelled faintly of money and disinfectant. At 5:30 a.m., it belonged to the cleaners. "Morning, Webb," called Keith, the security guard at the front desk. "Morning," Marcus replied, swiping his badge. He pushed his cleaning cart across the marble. Bottles clinked lightly against each other. The floor buffer whirred when he plugged it in. Thursday was executive meeting day. That meant the lobby had to look like nobody had ever walked on it. He started with the windows, working in a rhythm that his body knew by heart now. Spray, wipe, step, wipe again, move on. The city slowly brightened beyond the glass. By 7:15, he'd moved on to the last stretch of marble in front of the executive elevators. His cleaning cart sat a little off to the side. Mop bucket, squeegee, cleaners, folded rags. It wasn't beautiful, but it was functional. Space in front of the elevator wasn't crowded. But if someone wanted to stride straight down the center of the lobby without adjusting their path by an inch, they might brush the corner. He didn't hear the heels. "What is this?" He heard the voice instead. The words came out like chips of ice hitting tile. Marcus straightened and turned toward the sound. Victoria Ashford stood 3 feet away. She was, he supposed, exactly what a business magazine would call formidable. Her suit fit perfectly, a storm gray fabric that looked like it had never dared wrinkle. Her blonde hair was twisted into a knot so precise it seemed like each strand had signed a contract to stay in place. Her eyes were cool, her expression somewhere between impatient and offended. She pointed at his cart. "This is the state of my lobby on executive meeting day?" Marcus reached for the handle immediately. "I'm sorry, ma'am. I'll move it right away." Her voice rose just enough to carry across the lobby. "If this is the standard we operate at," she said, "it's no wonder productivity metrics are slipping. Equipment left out, blocking executive access, creating tripping hazards." She turned her head, gaze flicking to Keith at the front desk. "I want a written report on my desk by noon," she said. "I want to know why this was allowed to happen and how often it has happened before." Keith swallowed. "Yes, Ms. Ashford." Marcus moved the cart out of the way with careful, controlled motions. His ears burned. He could feel the attention of the early employees who had slowed their pace, pretending not to watch, but failing. "I apologize for the inconvenience," he said quietly. "It won't happen again." For the first time, she looked directly at him, really looked. Her gaze skimmed over his uniform, his stitched name, his hands, skin roughened from chemicals and mops, knuckles nicked from invisible corners. She took in the faint lines at the corners of his eyes and the threads of gray at his temples. Whatever she concluded tightened her mouth. "See that it doesn't," she said. Then she walked past him, heels striking the marble with a staccato rhythm, her attention already sliding back to whatever she considered important. The lobby seemed louder after that. Someone whispered, "That was harsh," to someone else. "Poor guy," another voice muttered. Phones rang, keyboards tapped, the building swallowed the moment whole. Marcus finished buffing the floor as if nothing inside him had shifted. He had long ago learned that reacting only made the burn last longer. He had been judged in hospital billing offices, at job interviews, in grocery store lines. This was just another moment in a long list. In 3 hours, he told himself, he would be holding Lily's hand at the clinic. They would read the Dragon book together. He would make funny voices. She would complain about the stethoscope being cold and then laugh when he tickled her. He had survived worse than a rich woman's contempt. He would survive this. St. Vincent's Hospital was a different kind of building, but it hummed with a similar energy. Movement, anxiety, fluorescent lights. The pediatric clinic was on the 4th floor, a waiting room with fading posters of smiling cartoon organs and a fish tank that needed better maintenance. Parents filled the chairs, hunched over forms, phones, or the blank space in front of them. Children played, coughed, cried, or stared at screens. Marcus checked Lily in at 2:45 p.m. He signed his name carefully on the clipboard. The copay figure at the bottom made his stomach knot, but he pushed the thought aside. That was a problem for later, for a calculator and a late night at the kitchen table. He guided Lily toward 2 empty chairs. "You want the window seat or the one next to the world's loudest air vent?" he asked. She considered. "Window." He sat beside her and took out the picture book. "You're doing the dragon voice," she reminded him. "Yes, ma'am." They were halfway through a chapter when a nurse opened the door and called, "Lily Webb?" "That's us," Marcus said. He lifted her onto his hip and followed the nurse down the hallway. The corridor smelled like antiseptic and anxiety. They passed exam rooms, open doors showing glimpses of doctors in white coats, children on exam tables, parents on chairs trying to look calm. They were just passing the emergency entrance when the double doors slammed open. A gurney came through at full speed, surrounded by paramedics. "7-year-old female," one called. "Abdominal hemorrhage, vitals dropping, oxygen sats in the 70s. Get PEDS trauma ready," someone else shouted. Marcus instinctively moved to the side, turning his body so Lily was shielded by his chest. He caught only fragments: a small body on the stretcher, an oxygen mask covering a too pale face, machines strapped around her like plastic armor. Then they were gone around the corner. Lily's arms tightened around his neck. "Daddy," she whispered. "Is she gonna be okay?" He kept his voice steady. "The doctors are running," he said. "That's a good sign. They're doing everything they can. That's their job." But his own heart rate refused to slow. That was someone's child on that stretcher. Someone's whole world, as Sarah used to say. In exam room 6, the doctor pressed the stethoscope to Lily's chest. Marcus watched her face as she listened, tracing the minute shifts in her brow, the micro-expressions that might signal concern. He had become fluent in this silent language over the years. When she finally smiled and said, "No change from last time, Mr. Webb," her murmurs stable. He felt the pressure in his chest release. No better, but no worse. He'd take it. They stepped back into the hallway, Lily's hand tucked in his, the exam behind them. They were heading toward the elevators when a scream ripped through the corridor. It carried all the way around the corner. Marcus and Lily turned the corner into chaos. A wheelchair had toppled sideways, one wheel spinning in the air. A cart of supplies lay overturned, gauze and tubing scattered like debris from a storm. In the middle of it all, a young girl convulsed on the floor, her hospital gown twisted. A nurse knelt beside her, breath coming in panicked bursts. "She tore out her IV and ran," the nurse gasped. "I couldn't catch her in time. I need help." The girl's body jerked violently. Her head was too close to the hard linoleum. Something in Marcus snapped into focus. "Lily," he said, voice suddenly sharp. "Against the wall. Sit down and don't move until I come back. Do you understand?" She nodded, wide-eyed, and slid down the wall, pulling her knees to her chest, elephant clutched close. Marcus dropped to his knees beside the girl. Old training, safety courses from his engineering days, forgotten certifications rose through the fog of years. "Roll her on her side," he told the nurse, already moving. "We need to keep her airway clear." He turned the girl gently, checked that nothing was blocking her mouth, then shrugged out of his jacket and folded it under her head so she wouldn't slam it onto the floor. The seizure rattled through her small frame. He held her shoulders firm enough to keep her from rolling, but gentle enough not to restrict her. "Get a doctor," he said. His voice came out calm. "Now." The nurse scrambled to press the emergency call. Marcus counted under his breath. 43 seconds. Each one stretched. "You're okay," he murmured. "You're not alone. I've got you. You're not alone." It was half for her, half for the part of his own brain that had carried too many images of hospital beds and pale faces. The seizure finally released its hold. Her body slackened. Her chest hitched with uneven breaths. Her eyelids fluttered open. They were blue, big, frightened. Her fingers latched onto his wrist with surprising strength. "Please," she whispered, voice raw and fragile. "Don't let me die. My mommy's not here. Please don't let me die." Marcus felt something tear in his chest that had nothing to do with veins or arteries. He thought of Sarah, of the last weeks, of the way she had looked at him and said, "Promise me you'll keep going for her," while he had wanted to scream that he didn't know how. He thought of Lily, small and silent against the wall, watching him with faith that he would make things right. "You're not dying," he said, with a conviction that surprised him. "I'm here. I'm staying right here." The crash team arrived like a storm. Doctors, nurses, a portable monitor, someone with a blood pressure cuff, someone calling out numbers. Marcus eased back, letting them slide in. "Seizure post-op," the first doctor said. "Get her back to trauma. Reinsert the line. Ready? Lift on 3. 1, 2, 3. They moved the girl onto a fresh gurney. His jacket stayed under her head. No one had time to return it. They rushed her away. Marcus stayed on his knees for a moment after they disappeared, hands trembling now that the urgent part was over. "Daddy!" Lily launched herself at him, arms wrapping around his neck so tightly he had to catch his balance. "You helped her," she said, her voice muffled in his shoulder. "You helped her, right?" He hugged her back, pressing his face into her hair. "I did what I could," he said. "The doctors are going to keep helping." Somewhere else in the building, an elevator dinged and a woman's desperate voice called out for her daughter. Marcus didn't see Victoria race toward the trauma bay. He didn't see her collide with the glass window, fingers splayed, watching her little girl, the same one he had just held through a seizure, surrounded by strangers in blue and green. But the threads between their lives were already tangled. He just didn't know it yet. The blood bank sat on the ground floor, tucked between the cafeteria and the administrative offices. As unglamorous as life-saving work often is. Normally, it processed a steady line of donors, not unlike a quiet, benevolent assembly line. Forms, tests, needles, juice, cookies, thanks. Today, it was all urgency. "We're out of O negative," the blood bank coordinator said, her voice tight but controlled. "Completely out. I've checked twice." She was speaking to Dr. Chen, the pediatric surgeon overseeing the Ashford girls' case. "I've called 3 hospitals," she went on. "They're all low. The regional center can send 2 units, but they won't arrive for at least 4 hours. Dr. Chen's eyes closed briefly, just long enough to count to 3. "She doesn't have 4 hours," he said. "Her bleeding's under control, but she's already lost too much volume. We need to transfuse within the hour, or we're going to lose her." Upstairs, Marcus and Lily sat in the main lobby. The appointment was done. The follow-up instructions were crumpled in his pocket. He was tired in the way that seeped into his bones. They hadn't left yet because the lobby was crowded, the revolving door a slow bottleneck of people entering and leaving. He had learned to avoid rushes. Less chance of bumping someone, less chance of Lily's hand slipping out of his and vanishing for a terrifying second in a sea of strangers. They sat on a plastic bench side by side. He was just about to say, "2 more minutes and then we go," when the intercom crackled again. "Code red. O negative blood urgently required. Pediatric emergency. All compatible staff, please report to the donation center." He stared at the ceiling. Lily turned to look at him. "That's your blood," she said quietly. "The rare kind." He nodded. He saw the blue-eyed girl on the floor. He heard her whisper. He heard Sarah, too, in another room, another time. "You can help, can't you?" Lily asked. Her voice didn't push. It simply held the question up, small and shining. He thought of the fatigue already clinging to him, of the early shift he'd have the next morning, of the bus rides and the bills. He thought of a mother sitting somewhere in the building now, waiting to be told if her child would live. "How about," he said softly, "we go see if they need me?" Lily nodded, solemn. They went downstairs. The donation center was packed, but not with volunteers anymore, mostly with people being turned away. "We appreciate it, but you're A positive, we can't." "I'm O, yes, but O positive, which is different." "Thank you for coming." "We'll call if we need your type." Marcus made his way to the intake desk with Lily's hand in his. "I'm O negative," he said. "I want to donate." The coordinator looked up as if someone had just thrown her a rope while she was drowning. "Are you sure?" she asked. "We'll need more than a standard unit. It'll be an extended draw. You might feel fairly weak afterwards." He nodded. "I understand." She gave him a clipboard of forms. He filled in his medical history, his medications, none, his recent illnesses, none he could afford to treat, he thought wryly, his travel, nowhere interesting. Then came the finger prick. the blood pressure cuff, the hemoglobin test. 15 minutes later, she came back, expression changed. "Mr. Webb," she said, "your blood is not only O negative, it has an exceptionally rare antigen profile. That means it's less likely to cause a reaction, even in a fragile patient." He blinked. "Is that good?" "For this situation, it's about as good as it gets," she replied. "The child has lost a lot. We can safely take a bit more from you than usual without compromising safety too much. You'd essentially be giving her the best possible chance." She hesitated. "There are still risks," she said. "You'll be dizzy, maybe nauseated. You'll need to rest for at least a couple of days. No heavy lifting, nothing strenuous. Are you certain?" He thought of the girl's voice. "Don't let me die. My mommy isn't here." He thought of the woman in the lobby that morning, dismissing him as an inconvenience. He thought of Lily beside him, her shoulders squared, as if she'd already decided what the right answer was. "I'm certain," he said. Lily squeezed his hand. "We're helping," she whispered, almost to herself. "We're helping like heroes." The coordinator nodded and flagged a nurse. "Let's set up bed 3, she said. "We have our donor." The nurse led Marcus into the donation room. He lay down on the narrow bed, a paper sheet rustling under him. The phlebotomist cleaned the crook of his elbow with cold antiseptic, slid the needle in with a practiced motion, and taped it in place. Dark red flowed down the tube and into the collection bag. Lily sat in the chair near the window, elephant on her lap, legs swinging. She watched the bag fill with wide eyes. "You're doing great," the phlebotomist said. "Let us know if you feel too lightheaded." "I already feel lightheaded," Marcus said. "But that might just be because I saw the bill for my daughter's appointment," the phlebotomist chuckled. "Juice and cookies afterward," she said. "That fixes everything, or so we like to pretend." He stared at the ceiling. The room started to feel farther away, as if he were listening to it from down a long hallway. "Daddy?" Lily's voice, small but steady. "Are you okay?" "Just tired," he answered. "Like when I mopped the whole building twice." "But she's gonna be okay now, right?" Lily pressed. "The girl with the blue eyes?" He turned his head to look at her. "If anything can help her," he said, "this can." Outside, unseen, a shadow moved at the door. Victoria stood in the corridor outside the donation room, one hand braced against the wall. Through the glass, she saw the man whose name she hadn't known until the nurse said it. "Mr. Webb is a match." The janitor from that morning, the man whose cart she'd treated like a personal insult. He lay there pale and still, blood flowing from his arm into a plastic bag that would soon be connected to her daughter. His little girl sat nearby, small shoulders held very straight, as if she knew that if she slumped, everything might crumble. For most of her career, Victoria had prided herself on being able to judge people at a glance, their tells, their weaknesses, their leverage points. It was how she'd built Ashford Industries into what it was. She knew who would fold under pressure, who would bluff, who would break a promise, and when. Looking at the scene through the glass, she realized she had never really looked at anyone like this man. He had been a blur in the background of her life, the uniform, the cart, the faint smell of cleaning chemicals. She had never imagined what lived behind those stitched-on name tags. Now, her daughter's heartbeat, her actual, literal heartbeat, depended on the blood inside this stranger. "Mr. Webb," the coordinator said quietly beside her, "is giving more than a standard unit. Without him, we would have been in serious trouble." Victoria couldn't answer. Her throat felt too tight. The nurse came out a few minutes later, carrying the filled collection bag in both hands as if it were something sacred. "I'll get this upstairs," she said. They're ready for it. Victoria watched the bag disappear around the corner. She stayed where she was, staring through the glass at Marcus as he slowly tried to sit up, swayed, and allowed himself to be eased back down again with a wry smile. Lily jumped up to offer him his juice cup as if it were a chalice. It felt like something inside Victoria's chest cracked. She had stepped on a man's dignity without blinking that morning. He had answered by giving her what he could not afford to give. Not money, time, blood, life. The word that finally came up through the sludge of her shock surprised her with its clarity. Shame. The transfusion went better than any of them had dared hope. Upstairs, in the pediatric ICU, monitors shifted from frantic chaos to more ordered patterns. Numbers climbed. Colors on the screens changed. Little by little, the Ashford girl, Emma, stopped circling the drain. When Dr. Chen finally stepped out and told Victoria, "She's stable. She'll need surgery tomorrow, but her chances are very good," Victoria sagged against the wall like someone had cut a string. In the quiet that followed, she thought of the man she had left downstairs. The nurse found her an hour later, still sitting by Emma's bed. "Mrs. Ashford," she said gently, "I thought you might want to know. Mr. Webb is being discharged. He's in the lobby with his daughter, waiting for a taxi." Victoria's gut clenched. "I need to speak to him," she said. "There's one more thing," the nurse added. "About him. I recognized him. He works at Ashford Industries." "I know," Victoria said. "No," the nurse said. "I mean, I knew him from before. One of my colleagues did, actually. He used to be an engineer, a good one. He left his career when his wife got sick. Spent everything trying to save her. After she died, he took the first stable job he could find. Your cleaning staff." Every sentence was a stone dropping into a deep well. "He has a little girl with a heart condition," the nurse went on. "Nothing catastrophic now, but it needs regular monitoring. He works 2 jobs to keep up with the bills. No insurance, but he never misses an appointment. Ever." Victoria pictured the marble lobby. Her own voice, her own face, the way she looked at him, like he was less important than the reflection of her shoes in the floor he'd just cleaned. She wanted to be sick. "Thank you," she managed, "for telling me." She took the elevator down to the lobby, each floor a layer of her old self she was leaving behind. The lobby at 8:30 p.m. was a different place than the one at 7:30 a.m. The natural light was gone. The overhead fixtures cast a sterile glow. Most of the chairs were empty now. The daytime flood had thinned to occasional trickles of visitors and late discharges. Marcus sat on a bench near the sliding doors. Lily slept against him, head on his chest, one hand still fisted in his shirt. His posture was that of a man who had gone far past tired. Shoulders dropped, spine curved, eyes closed. He heard the click of heels and opened his eyes. Victoria stood a few feet away, but not the Victoria from the morning. This one looked like she had been put through a grinder. Her hair was loose in places, her mascara smudged, her suit wrinkled. The lines around her mouth were deeper. "Mr. Webb," she said, voice catching slightly on his name. "May I speak with you?" "You're already speaking," he said, not cruelly. "I came to apologize," she began. He waited. "I humiliated you today," she said. "I treated you as if you were in the way instead of doing your job. I spoke to you like you were less, in front of everyone." He said nothing. "And then you gave your blood," she went on, "to save my daughter's life." She swallowed. "You didn't have to," she said. "After what I did, after what I said, why did you?" He looked down at Lily. He brushed a curl away from her forehead with his fingertips. "Because she's a child," he said simply. Because she was terrified and alone, and I know exactly how that feels. Because I could help. She blinked. You weren't angry? He laughed softly, a sound without much humor. I've been angry for a long time, he said. Angry at doctors who did their best and it still wasn't enough. At insurance companies that treated my wife like a line item. At a world where a bad diagnosis can erase everything you've built. He met her eyes. But I'm not going to be angry at a 7-year-old girl for having a mother who forgot how to see people. The words hit harder than if he'd shouted. She flinched. I don't know if I would have done the same, she admitted. If our positions were reversed. If I were the one you'd embarrassed in the lobby. I'm not proud of that. But it's probably true. He shrugged. Maybe, maybe not, he said. We're all different when the emergency is ours. She took a breath. I can't repay what you did, she said. There's no number that comes close. But I'd like to do something. Please let me at least arrange safe transportation for you and your daughter, a company car, proper car seat. No taxis tonight. Marcus hesitated. The stubborn part of him wanted to say no, to insist on principle that she didn't get to wash away what she'd done with a ride. But Lily was a warm, heavy weight against him. His head still felt light. The thought of jostling through the cold night, changing buses, standing on slippery curbs, none of that appealed, especially not when he was running on fewer red blood cells than usual. A ride would be appreciated, he finally said. Thank you. She exhaled, tension leaving her shoulders. The car arrived 15 minutes later, a sleek black sedan with tinted windows. The driver installed a car seat with practiced efficiency. Victoria watched as Marcus shifted Lily into the seat, buckled her in with careful hands, and settled beside her. Mr. Webb, she said quietly, leaning down so he could see her, I am deeply sorry. For this morning, for every time I've looked through someone like you as though you were furniture. He studied her face. He could see the exhaustion, the sheer fright, the cracks in the facade. For the first time, she looked not like a CEO, but like what she also was, a mother who had nearly lost her child. I hope your daughter keeps getting better, he said, for her sake, and for yours. He didn't say he forgave her. That wasn't something he could offer on a bench, half-conscious from blood loss after a day like this. Forgiveness wasn't a switch. It was more like scar tissue. But he could offer this small blessing. He closed the door. The car pulled away, leaving Victoria standing on the hospital steps, arms wrapped around herself despite the expensive coat. She watched the taillights disappear. For the first time in her career, she wondered if she had built the wrong kind of empire. The emergency board meeting the next morning was an ambush she'd seen coming a mile away. The directors sat around the table in a semicircle, faces composed into that particular expression that blended concern with judgment. On the screen at the far end of the room, a frozen image from yesterday's presentation stared back, a graph of projected earnings, now irrelevant. Victoria, said Harold Weston, the chairman, we're glad your daughter is stable, truly. His tone made it clear what came next. But your abrupt departure from the investor presentation caused serious concern, he continued. Robert did what he could in your absence, but questions were raised about your judgment, your commitment. I got a call that my daughter might not live through the night, Victoria replied. I chose to be with her. We understand, Harold said, but this company employs thousands, has obligations, requires leadership, expects you to put the business first. She could have finished his sentence for him. For 15 years, she said instead, I have put the business first. I've missed birthdays, recitals, First days of school. I've signed deals from hospital parking lots. I've told myself it was worth it because I was building something important. She let her gaze move around the table, meeting each pair of eyes in turn. Yesterday, she said quietly, a janitor saved my daughter's life. They shifted uncomfortably. A man I humiliated in our lobby, she went on. A man I treated like he was an obstruction. He donated his blood, extended donation with serious side effects, to save Emma. Without hesitation, without bargaining, without asking who she was or what I had done. She folded her hands on the table. He has no insurance, she said. He works 2 jobs to care for his daughter's heart condition. He used to be an engineer. We lost that talent to our own system. And still, when my child needed him, he stepped up. Harold cleared his throat. Victoria, this is all very moving, but it doesn't change our fiduciary responsibility. It changes mine, she said. She leaned forward. I'm not resigning, she said, and I'm not apologizing for leaving that presentation. If you want someone who would have stayed to finish a slideshow while their child was dying, you're welcome to look for them. Shock flickered on a few faces. What I am doing, she continued, is changing how we run this company. She slid a stack of papers across the table, draft policy proposals she had written between 3 a.m. and sunrise, with Emma's monitors blinking in the corner of her vision. We will provide meaningful health insurance to all full-time employees, she said, including cleaning staff. We will establish an emergency fund for employees facing medical crises. We will implement flexible scheduling for single parents and paid family leave that isn't symbolic. One director sneered. This will cost us millions. And save us more in retention, loyalty, and basic decency, she said. But even if it didn't, it would still be the right thing to do. Harold's jaw tightened. You can't unilaterally— Yes, she said calmly. I can. That's part of the job description you've been so eager to protect. If you don't like it, you can vote me out. Until then, I intend to use it. She rose, gathering her folder. You can support this, she said, or you can explain to the press why you fired a CEO for leaving a meeting to save her child and then refused to give your own employees the resources one of them needed to save her child. She didn't wait for their response. As she stepped into the hallway and the glass doors swung shut behind her, she realized that for the first time in a long time, she felt clean, terrified, but clean. 2 days later, the world looked slightly less hostile as Victoria walked into Emma's hospital room carrying a paper bag. Inside were contraband items, real orange juice, not the watered-down version the vending machines offered, a new stuffed unicorn with glittery hooves, 2 coloring books, and a pack of crayons. Emma sat up, propped on pillows, an IV still taped to the back of her hand. Mom, she said, face lighting up. Guess what? My blood is nice and stable now. That's what Dr. Chen said. Nice and stable. That sounds like something he would say, Victoria smiled, setting the bag on the table. Emma peered inside. Is that a unicorn? I thought you might need a new friend, Victoria said. The old ones are probably jealous by now. Emma hugged the toy. Then she sobered. Is the man okay? She asked. The one who gave me his blood? Yes, Victoria said. He's tired, but okay. I want to say thank you, Emma said firmly. Like, properly, not just in my head. Do you think he'd like a card? Or a drawing? Or a cake? Do hospitals let you bring cake? We'll figure something out, Victoria promised. A soft knock sounded. Come in, Victoria called. Marcus stood in the doorway. Lily peeked around his leg, clutching a piece of construction paper. Sorry to interrupt, he said. The nurse said Emma was doing well. Lily wanted to give her something. Lily stepped forward and held out the paper. On it, 2 stick figures held hands under a bright orange sun. One had messy hair. The other had lines coming from their head that Lily would later explain were worry lines that turned into happy ones. Above them, in careful, slightly uneven letters, were the words, "Thank you for staying." Emma's eyes went wide. "Wow," she breathed. "Is this for me?" Lily nodded, suddenly shy. "That's you," she said, pointing. "And that's a grown-up, not my dad. Just a grown-up that stayed. Because lots of grown-ups stay when kids are scared. Not just him." Marcus's chest tightened. Emma traced the sun with her finger. "This is the best thing anyone has ever drawn me," she declared. Within minutes, the girls were on the bed together, side by side, comparing hospital stories like other children might compare school recesses. "Did your IV hurt?" Lily asked. "A little," Emma said. "But I got 3 stickers. That's like a lot." Victoria moved closer to Marcus. "Thank you for coming," she said softly. "I wasn't sure you'd want to see us again." "Lily insisted," he said. "She wanted to see if the girl from the hallway was really okay." Victoria watched Lily touch the edge of Emma's bandage with careful curiosity. "You've raised an extraordinary daughter," she said. He shook his head. "She's been raising me," he replied. "After her mom died, she was the reason I kept showing up anywhere." They stood in the hush that comes easily in hospital rooms. "I meant what I said in the lobby," Victoria said, "about being sorry. But I also meant what I said in the boardroom. I'm changing things at Ashford Industries, and I want your help." He raised an eyebrow. "My help?" "We're creating a program for single parents in the company," she said. "Real support, not marketing fluff. Health coverage that actually covers something. Flexible schedules so people can make doctor's appointments without losing their jobs. Emergency funds." He nodded slowly. "Good," he said. "You should." "I'm good at budgets and strategy," she said. "But I don't know what it's like to choose between paying rent and paying for a prescription. You do. I want your voice when we design this. I want to hire you as a consultant, part-time to start, with full benefits for you and Lily." He blinked. "You want a janitor's opinion?" "I want an engineer who has been a janitor's opinion," she corrected. "I want someone who knows both sides of the building." He thought of nights hunched over the kitchen table, of bus rides, of dragging himself through shifts while running a mental tally of overdue notices. He thought of all the parents who did the same math every day. "This could matter," he said quietly. "Not just for me. For a lot of people." "It will only work if you're honest with me," she said, "even when it's uncomfortable. Especially then." He looked at her. "Can you handle that?" he asked. "I can try," she said. He extended his hand. "Then I'll do it." She took his hand. From the bed, Emma called, "Mom! Lily says she wants to be my friend forever. Can she come to my birthday when I'm not in the hospital?" Victoria glanced at Marcus. His eyes softened. "I think we can arrange that," she said. 6 weeks later, the lobby of Ashford Industries was full in a way it had never been before. Not of clients, of employees. There were executives in suits, yes, but also receptionists in blouses, engineers in jeans, janitors in navy uniforms, cafeteria staff in aprons. They filled the space around the small stage that had been set up near the executive elevators. Banners hung on either side of the stage. Victoria Webb Initiative for Single Parents. Victoria stepped up to the podium. Marcus stood slightly behind her, adjusting the cuffs of the suit she'd insisted on buying him, looking like he wasn't entirely sure it belonged to him. Thank you for coming, Victoria began. Her voice echoed slightly in the cavernous space. When I took this job, she said, I thought leadership meant being the toughest person in the room. The one who never flinched, never softened, never let anything get in the way of the numbers on a quarterly report. She looked out at the crowd. Then one morning I humiliated a member of our cleaning staff in this very lobby. And that evening my daughter almost died. The man I had humiliated gave his blood to save her life. A murmur rippled through the employees. For years, we've said people are our greatest asset, she continued. But our policies have told a different story. We've built systems that rely on invisible sacrifice, on parents working 2 jobs, on people skipping doctor visits, on employees pushing themselves past exhaustion because they can't afford to rest. She gestured toward Marcus. This, she said, is Marcus Webb. He is a single father, a former engineer, a member of our cleaning staff, and the reason my daughter is alive. Marcus shifted, clearly wishing he could melt into the floor. She outlined the program. Comprehensive health coverage for full-time employees at all levels, an emergency fund for crises, flexible scheduling options for caregivers, paid parental leave that applied to more than just senior roles. This initiative exists, she finished, because one man reminded me that dignity is not a perk you earn with a title. It belongs to you from the moment you walk through these doors. She stepped back, beckoning Marcus forward. He cleared his throat. I'm not used to being this visible, he said. Most days, if you notice my work at all, it means I did something wrong. There was gentle laughter. Being a single parent is complicated, he went on. It's not just about money. It's time. It's energy. It's trying to pretend you're not scared when your kid asks if you're okay. He spoke about the calculations, about nights he'd spent figuring out whether he could afford another appointment, about the gnawing fear of what would happen to Lily if something happened to him. This program won't fix everything, he said. It won't change the fact that bad things happen to good people, but it might make it a little easier for some of us to breathe. It might mean one less impossible choice between a child and a paycheck. He glanced down at the front row where Lily and Emma sat together, both wearing small pins shaped like hearts. That, he said, is worth a lot. He stepped back. The applause was real, not polite. Real. 3 months later, the sky outside St. Vincent's was a pale gray, clouds heavy with snow that hadn't yet decided when to fall. Inside the pediatric cardiology clinic, the waiting room hummed as usual, posters on the walls, faded chairs, parents with tired faces, children with hope or fear, or both. Marcus and Lily sat side by side. Today was a checkup. No big news expected, but he knew better than to take anything for granted. Across the room, Victoria and Emma sat together. Emma swung her feet, clearly impatient. Ms. Ashford? A nurse called. Victoria stood. Yes. Dr. Chen is ready for Emma's final follow-up, the nurse said. If all looks good today, we won't need to see her again for a while. Emma grinned. Told you, she whispered to her mother. I'm basically made of steel now. They disappeared through the door. Henry, different nurse, different day, called, Lily Webb? That's us, Marcus said. He stood, offered Lily his hand. She squeezed it. An hour later, 2 families reappeared. Emma bounced, energy renewed. All clear, she announced to anyone within 10 feet. I'm officially boring, that's what they said. Boring scans. Boring is wildly underrated, Victoria said. Lily tugged on Marcus's sleeve. Stable, she said. Same as last time. Stable is good, he replied. They met by the elevator. There's a cafe downstairs, Victoria said. Best hot chocolate in the building. Interested? Emma's eyes lit up. Yes. Lily's did too. Double yes. They sat at a table by the window, 4 cups of hot chocolate steaming between them, 2 for the grown-ups, 2 drowned in whipped cream and sprinkles. The girls claimed the chairs nearest the glass, watching as the first tentative snowflakes began to drift down. "Do you think snowflakes ever get tired?" Emma asked. "They fall for so long." "Maybe they like it," Lily said. "Maybe they race." Marcus and Victoria sat slightly apart, where they could watch their daughters. "She talks about Lily all the time," Victoria said. "At breakfast, at night, in between. Lily would like this. I wonder what Lily's doing. It's like I gained a second child by accident." "Lily asked me last week if Emma could be her sister," Marcus said. "I had to explain genetics to a 6-year-old. "Careful," Victoria said. "She might come back with a PowerPoint presentation after the next visit." They fell quiet for a moment. "I know I can never erase that first day," she said at last. "The way I spoke to you, the way I saw you. I know sorry doesn't patch that over." He stirred his drink. "No," he agreed. "It doesn't." "But I hope," she said, "that what we're building now, at the company, here with the girls, everywhere, it balances the scale a little." He thought of Sarah, of the way she used to say people weren't as different as they pretended to be, that underneath the titles and the uniforms, everyone was just trying to love and be loved and not break under the weight of it. "My wife used to say people are like machines," he said. "Sometimes they're badly designed. Sometimes they just need recalibrating." He gave her a small smile. "I think you're doing a decent job of recalibrating," he said. Her eyes shone, but she blinked the tears back. "That might be the kindest performance review I've ever gotten," she replied. At the window, Emma pressed her palm against the glass. "Can we go out?" she called. "Please, just for a bit. I want to feel the snow." "Please, Daddy," Lily chimed. "Just 5 minutes, or 10, or forever." Marcus and Victoria looked at each other. The world was still unfair. There were still bills and meetings and late nights ahead. There were still old wounds that would ache when the weather changed. But there was also this: 2 little girls who should have been strangers, giggling together over snowflakes. 2 parents who, against their own expectations, now shared something like, not friendship, not yet, but understanding. "What do you think?" Victoria asked. "I think," Marcus said, "that maybe standing inside watching is overrated." They gathered their coats. Outside, the snow came down heavier. The hospital loomed behind them, its windows glowing warm in the gray afternoon. Emma spun in a circle, arms outstretched, face turned up to the sky, laughing as flakes melted on her cheeks. Lily stuck her tongue out to catch them, then ran back to Marcus, grabbing his hand to drag him forward. "Come on!" she shouted. "You can't just watch!" Victoria stepped beside them, her hand brushing his as they both reached out instinctively when Emma slipped a little on the wet sidewalk. For a second, their fingers overlapped. Not a grand moment, just a human one. They helped the girls build a lopsided, half-hearted snowman that collapsed twice before they gave up and decided it was an abstract snow sculpture instead. Marcus looked at Lily, cheeks flushed, eyes bright. He thought of how close he had come to losing her more times than he liked to admit. Not because of illness, but because of exhaustion, despair, the temptation to give up. He looked at Emma, fully alive because he'd said yes when the intercom called for his blood. He looked at Victoria, hair dusted with snow, suit damp at the hem, laughing in a way that made her look younger and more vulnerable than he'd ever seen. He thought of the marble lobby at Ashford Industries, with its glossy surfaces and sharp edges, and of the same space 6 weeks later, filled with people from every floor hearing, for the first time, that they mattered. The world had not magically become fair, but somewhere between a lobby An operating room, a board meeting, and a snow-covered sidewalk. Something had changed. A janitor had given his blood. A CEO had given up her certainty. Two little girls had given each other friendship. And all of them, in their own way, had decided that the rarest thing in the building wasn't a blood type at all. It was the courage to see a human being where yesterday there had only been a role. Under the soft drift of snow, two families walked away from the hospital together. Not yet one story, perhaps, but no longer separate ones either. For now, that was enough.